Welcome to episode 21 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the new competing documentaries about the Fyre Festival. The Oscar nominations were released last week. Me and Christian both saw Green Book. I'll be giving the review of Jack and Jill DX. And finally, Kingdom Hearts 3 is being released soon. But first, Christian, you got a chance to see one of the Fyre Festival documentaries that was recently released. Which one did you see?
I watched the Netflix one. It's called The Party That Never Happened, or The Greatest Party That Never Happened.
So I saw that one, but the first one I saw was Fyre Fraud on Hulu. And then I just before we recorded this, I actually just watched The Greatest Party That Never Happened. And I'm really excited to talk about the differences between these two documentaries.
Yeah, I have the Hulu one on my queue. I just haven't gotten a chance to get to it yet.
So what did you think about Fyre, The Greatest Party That Never Happened?
I'm absolutely obsessed with this. Like I remember when this happened, whenever it was like mid 2016, and I was kind of just vaguely aware of it just because I'm on Twitter basically 24 hours a day. And so I remember seeing the picture of the cheese sandwich and watching everybody kind of collectively lose their minds about this. And so when I heard these docs were coming out, I was pretty excited about it, and they didn't disappoint, or at least the one I saw.
Yeah, so I first heard of this I didn't know nothing about it until Blink 182 pulled out, and then I was like, "What is this?" And then I started reading some articles about it and following up when everything started blowing up. And if there was anything that was made for like a documentary with them having so much footage of this stuff behind the scenes, I mean, this is it.
Oh my God, I know they filmed everything.
Things they should not be filming that probably spoiler alert, the guy who is the main one behind this goes to jail, and there's things in the Netflix version of this that I was like, I can't believe you're filming that, man. Like, you're committing crime on camera.
I feel like they thought they were going to pull this off and it was going to be the greatest, and that then they could make basically this documentary, except it would have a happy ending for them.
Yeah. So if you guys don't know, the Fyre Festival was supposed to be a music festival that I want to say it was April 2017 or somewhere around there that it was supposed to happen. It was going to be held in the Bahamas, and it was supposed to be like this luxury music festival where you'd be hanging out with Instagram models or famous people. And it was supposed to be awesome. And then it just evolved into a complete disaster because as you go through these documentaries, you find out how woefully unprepared and inexperienced the people who were throwing this event were. You've only seen one of them right now, Christian. I'm curious because I thought the Hulu one did a lot better job of pointing out how unprepared they were. What did you think of their unpreparedness for this festival?
It felt like a lot of the people who were building it kind of understood what was about to happen, but the people in charge were like in full denial.
Yeah, and I got the same one, but the one thing that I found much more interesting on the difference between the two was on the Netflix one, it seemed like people were saying, oh, we have 45 days or whatever. We have 6 weeks. We think we can pull this out. On the Hulu version, they talked to some contractors who literally told them when they approached them 3 months out, they were like, there's no way this can happen. And they're like, whatever, we'll pay you anyways. From the outset, this seemed impossible. And in the Netflix one, they talked about how they're supposed to have this private island. And the Hulu one, they're saying you can't, if you have all the money in the world, you can't buy a private island within like a year in the Bahamas. Like, it just takes time. It's not a quick turnaround, and they're trying to do it in 3 months. And I think they kind of glossed over that in the Netflix one.
Yeah, I do remember them saying they were talking to a guy who was like a music festival planner, which is apparently just a profession unto itself now. He was saying like they came to us and they said, we have like 45 days. Can you salvage this? And he was like, I mean, usually it takes 8 to 9 months to put a music festival together. So it sounded like, at least from the side I saw, it sounded like they were skeptical, but took it kind of like a challenge, at least at first.
I agree. Like, some of these people definitely took it as a challenge, but it's just, I guess we know it failed now, but when things were going on, people involved, you had to be like, dude, how could you think this would happen? Like, I totally understand the contractors though. They're like, look, if this doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. Like I have a contract, I'm getting my money. Like I don't care. But from like the higher ups perspective, when everyone's telling you like this can't happen, you really got to question the reasons they were doing this.
Yeah, man's got to know his limitations.
And also, what I couldn't help but think this while I'm watching this, why did they have to throw this thing in 4 months? Like, why did they need to have it that April? Why don't you plan it for the next April? Give yourself 14 months, and you probably pull it off because they had the money for it. They just tried to do everything too quickly.
Yeah, that's I saw somebody tweet about it shows how somebody can be like fully obsessed with the optics and not with the follow through. Because yeah, you're right. This was a fully self-imposed deadline. It's not like somebody came to them and said, I have this date open. It's the only date I have open for like the next year and a half. Like they had all the time in the world. They chose when to make this.
Yeah, and then like they choose when to make it, and they throw it on the weekend when it's that island Super Bowl or whatever. It's the boat races.
Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of self-inflicted wounds on this one. My favorite part, the funniest things of the Hulu one, they did not bring it up in Netflix, but one of the guys who follows the creator of the Fyres Festival who got in a lot of trouble, his name is Billy McFarland. One of the dudes who follows Billy around is just like his personal bartender in the Bahamas. His name's Delray. And he was like, yeah, so Billy's prepping for this, and they ordered $2 million in alcohol. And I was like, who orders $2 million of alcohol? Because apparently, like, there's a 50% tax on alcohol in the Bahamas. And so they owed $1 million in, like, excise taxes or whatever.
God.
And they didn't have the money for it. And they were, like, planning to go break into the embassy and, like, steal it. Like, it was insane. Just really poor planning.
You mentioned self-inflicted wounds. I think one of my favorite parts of the Netflix doc was they kept talking about how it was Pablo Escobar's island, and the family kept saying, like we'll let you use this, but you can't advertise that it was Pablo Escobar's island because we're trying to get away from that image. And in the first marketing campaign, it was Pablo Escobar's island, and so the family immediately were like, never mind, you can't use this. Like we had one request and you blew it immediately.
I mean, it's just like this guy who's a pathological liar.
And, like, I don't know how Ja Rule is not also in jail.
Yeah, I think he skated by claiming it was all Billy. Like, that was my biggest problem. One of my biggest problems with the Netflix one is everyone was just like, oh, it was Billy's fault. Everything went wrong, including Jerry Media, who are the producers of the Netflix version. In Fyre Fraud on Hulu, they actually get one of the ex-guys who had worked with Billy on behalf of Jerry Media, and he gives a much harsher view on what they knew. He essentially was like, I was telling them that it couldn't happen, yada, 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 and they just kept pushing through with it. And it's one of those things where it's like, you guys were promoting something they couldn't deliver, and then you're like, oh, we were fooled too. But it's like, were you really?
Well, did you see the Ja Rule tweet?
I'm not sure. I saw a bunch of them on the documentary, but...
So... as these docs are coming out, basically, it was either the day they came out or the day before. So, because the Hulu one kind of came out of nowhere, like Netflix had announced that this was happening, and then like a day before the Netflix one came out, Hulu was like, "Oh yeah, we also have one," and they dropped it at the same time. But Ja Rule went on Twitter and wrote, "I too was hustled, scammed, bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray," with like 3 exclamation points. I thought it was hysterical. But yeah, like even in the Netflix one, like you said, there's a lot of like hemming and hawing about, oh, we didn't know it was all Billy's fault, but like it's all on camera. They taped everything. It's like you said, they taped themselves committing crimes, and Ja Rule was very complicit in a lot of that stuff. And there's a meeting after it all falls apart. They're in the office, and one of the employees says, we're in it because we basically committed fraud. And Ja Rule says something like, "Oh no, don't! It wasn't a fraud. Call it false advertising." And it was like, "Come on, buddy."
Oh my god, I died when I heard that part because Ja Rule's whole thing is like, I didn't know anything. And it's like, clearly you did, man. If our listeners out there haven't seen it, I would suggest at least watching one. Like, this is a crazy story. I mean, part of it's fun because it's like you're laughing at the rich millennials who paid all this money to go to a private island, and everything was just a mess. But at the same time, this dude is a crazy good scammer, apparently. I mean, they were talking about how he was buddies with Aubrey McClendon, who in the Hulu version, who, if you don't know, was the founder or president or whatever of Chesapeake Energy, which was one of the largest natural gas producers in the United States. He had a lot of fraud charges against him with the SEC and stuff. He stepped down as Chesapeake's in his position at Chesapeake and ended up killing himself. And a lot of people think it was self-inflicted suicide because he just crashed his car into like an underpass. Chesapeake Energy did a lot of scammy things to landowners that they were leasing from to get the natural gas out of. So like when I was like, oh, he's friends with Aubrey McClendon, I really was not that surprised that he was a scam artist.
Yeah, and it's not like this was even his first or last like jobs like this. Like he had that credit card in New York that was supposed to be like for community building with millennials and things, and all like it appeared to just be like a Ponzi scheme. And then after he got out on bail for the Fyre Fest nonsense, he started up another thing where they were emailing people asking them to spend money on tickets that didn't exist, and that's why his bail was revoked. Like, dude doesn't know when to quit.
No, so many little things like that. I thought it was funny too because I talked to some people about his Magnes card who had like the penthouse or whatever clubhouse. They had some people on the Hulu one who are saying like, oh yeah, like we remember it was not what they advertised. Like it wasn't a nice house. They're like, it was basically a frat house. It was like a club for people who would join a frat if they were 30, if they could, like that's what the house was. But yeah, he was a scammer. Like that's all he did was he would sell stuff he didn't have and then try and deliver, and it caught up to him. Do you think there's any culpability on like the influencers who are pushing out this stuff?
It's a good question. I definitely saw just as I was Googling stuff to do this recording that there are now lawsuits pending against like Kendall Jenner and a few others. I think yes, at least partially. They definitely didn't know what they were advertising, and so you can plead ignorance, I guess. It's an issue for me because I can only imagine how many things like this get sent to them every year. And so you only have so much time to dig in and research what it is you're advertising for. You have to rely on people telling you like, yes, it's legit. The other thing is this was legit, at least until like the wheels started coming off the wagon, like towards the end. But when they first were making these marketing videos, like there was no way for them to know that this was going to become what it was.
No, I agree with you on that. I don't fault them for advertising it. My big thing with, I think, social influencers, and really it's going to be a reckoning that this generation has to deal with, is these people are being paid to advertise something, but they're essentially hiding that it's an advertisement, right? Like they're not like, hey, we're not being paid by Fyre Festival to post this. So like, we're going here. Like it's something that they're really genuinely excited about. And it's like a new way I think ads are trying to infiltrate, because how many people just zone out when you see ads anymore? Like I can't tell you what an ad's trying to sell me, because when I see it, I just ignore it. And these are like new marketing techniques. And I feel like there needs to be some disclosure that, hey, I was paid to do this. So maybe take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Like you're not getting you're always going to get some bias, but you're getting like a paid bias at this point, Yeah,
that's definitely fair. I definitely understand that. And I think for something that was this big, there probably should have been some follow through on the part of the people that advertised it. Like they should have been included in the development of this so that as things started to fall apart, they maybe could have told the people that they influenced in the first place, they could maybe re-influence them to be like, hey, maybe not.
And then one final thing I just want to point out. I feel so bad for the workers in the Bahamas who worked for months or whatever it was nonstop and got shorted on a bill. They really got screwed in this one.
Oh yeah, like in the Netflix one, man, I was having so much fun just watching these. Like it's a bit of Schadenfreude where you can watch these idiot people who are like, oh man, you're gonna spend $10,000 or whatever it was on a music festival, like LOL, sucks to be you, And then when you see like who the actual real victims at the end of this were the workers who worked day in and day out and didn't get paid a cent. And that woman who was like the caterer, like the head cook or whatever, who spent like, what did she say, $50,000 and like wiped out her savings trying to pay the people that worked under her just out of her own pocket. Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, that's rough on them. I mean, I do feel bad for some of the attendees. Like, depending, like, if you put a lot of money down and you got scammed out of that, that sucks because a lot of the stuff that Billy McFarland got in trouble for was scamming investors, not necessarily customers. That's what all the class actions are. And who knows if they even get their money back. But I would say, generally speaking, if you're going to drop that much money on a festival, I would say a majority of them are able to absorb that hit better, whereas a lot of those workers in the Bahamas and contractors and stuff, like, they didn't work and they get paid for a month. That's a lot rougher. And also, I mean, everyone's making fun of the conditions of the Fyre Festival, but I mean, at the end of the day, they were there for a couple days. It seemed like they were bad, but like they weren't life or death, you know?
Yeah, the only the only moment I was like, ooh, was when that guy on the Netflix one came on and he was talking about how we wanted to be off on our own and the peace and quiet, so we were like sabotaging the tents around us, like cutting holes in them and destroying them so that nobody would want to sleep near us. And I was like, really? That guy was a lunatic.
I couldn't believe it, man. Like, you're all in the same situation. Like, you don't want you want 10 extra feet of space, so you're going to screw over like 40 people. That's just a crappy human being at that point.
But I do want to say that there was a GoFundMe for the woman whose like savings got wiped out paying her workers, and they raised something like $123,000 for her. So,
oh, good.
I mean, it's not the ending that it should have been, but at least she got some restitution for that.
Yeah, that's good for her. Then I'm happy about that.
I've been talking about these documentaries to basically everybody I can. I'm obsessed with this story. I would definitely recommend watching at least one of them because some of the stories that get told, oh man, you would not believe.
I could legitimately probably do an episode about this one just because they're really good documentaries. Definitely check them out if you haven't seen them or at least seen one.
Keith, the pilot in the Netflix one, is hysterical. He was trying to talk to them about how like you're thinking big in all the wrong places. Like they had all these big plans for things, but they hadn't mapped out like where to put toilets or anything like that.
Yeah, was that the guy who had like the map and he was trying to tell them, oh, we need to do this, this, and this, and he was like, we need to just have people on a boat, and then they're just like, nope, we're firing you. We want we want a yes man.
Yeah, and I feel like they really breezed over the part where he said he learned to fly planes on Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Wait, really? Oh my God, I missed that.
Yeah, they were interviewing him at the beginning. He's like, oh yeah, I learned how to fly on Microsoft Flight Simulator. They've got a thing on there, and it's just like a real plane, and that's where I learned to fly. And I was like, oh no.
Oh my God.
And yeah, there's one story in particular that gets told in the Netflix one it's been the highlight, especially on Twitter and Facebook that everybody goes to, and I don't even want to give even a little bit of voice to it because it's the best. And so you like definitely check it out because like I said, the stories that get told in these you wouldn't believe.
I know which one. Are you talking about the water?
Yeah, freeing the water.
Yeah, I was like, man, you could not make this up for a movie. So this past week, the Oscar nominations were released. The best pictures are Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star is Born, and Vice. But what are your thoughts on the best picture list?
I'm actually in a decent position for it this year. I've seen right now 5 out of the 7, or no, I've seen right now 6 out of the 8. I only have not seen Favorite and Roma, although Roma's a Netflix original, so I could literally watch that right now on Netflix if I wanted to.
I have seen, at this point, 3 of them, but my goal right now is to watch as many of the Oscar nominations as I can. I've seen Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Green Book. And like you said, Roma's a Netflix original. And also still out in theaters, actually, is Vice and I believe The Favorite. So are there any movies you saw this year that you think got screwed and should have been one of the best pictures nominees?
I don't think so, to be honest. Like, I have a hard time even... I watch so many movies in a year. Like, our theater will print out a list because we do an Oscar competition here at work. Our theater will print out a list of like everything we showed this year, and my yearly average is usually around like 70 to 75 movies. So I have trouble separating like what I watched when. The only one I'll say is the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It is definitely nominated for Best Animated Feature. I think it should have gotten a Best Picture nom.
I'm with you on that one. I really liked Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and I especially liked it more than Black Panther. But Black Panther was the first superhero movie ever to be nominated. I've seen on the internet a lot of surprise about that one. And while I thought Black Panther was an okay movie, I can see why the Academy has chosen to put it up there, though. It was really beloved in general back when it came out earlier this year.
It was, and it was the highest grossing movie of the year.
Was it? I did not realize that.
Yep, it beat out Infinity War. I can't remember exactly by how much, but yeah, it was the highest grossing movie of 2018. Speaking of which, one thing I did not see on this list anywhere is the best popular movie category, which they announced a few months ago, and it got a lot of like backpush. So I wonder if they decided to do away with it, or if I just haven't seen it announced anywhere yet. But like I'm looking now at the like official 2019 ballot, and I do not see that category anywhere on here.
No, they rescinded that, I think, after the backlash.
Good, because it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
No, I don't think it did. I mean, we talked about it on one of our first episodes, I think, actually, because we were like, was that a way to sidestep putting Black Panther up as Best Picture because of their hatred for comic book movies? So I don't know any that I haven't seen any personally that I was like, oh, this should have been Best Picture. But in general, I've seen complaints of two movies who should have been up there but weren't. I've seen a lot of people on the internet saying Eighth Grade or If Beale Street Could Talk should have been up there, but I haven't seen either of those, so I can't really speak to it.
Yeah, neither have I. I've also seen that same kind of chatter. Eighth Grade was a surprise. I had a feeling that Beale Street getting snubbed was going to cause some grumbling. Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to that. But I was surprised to see Eighth Grade getting as much praise as it did because I didn't know a whole lot about it.
The other one I saw that I'm not sure if it's a movie or I assume it is because people were saying Sorry to Bother You. Was that a movie that you've seen, Christian? I think it's a Netflix one.
It is a Netflix one. I had not seen it though.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either, but I saw some grumbling too that should have been up there. The biggest surprise on this list for me, other than Black Panther, was Vice. I know you liked it, but I did not get Best Picture vibes from it.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I know we said we weren't going to do predictions this time, but I don't see it winning. I don't see it coming even close. They probably could have swapped that out for something else like Beale Street. I think a lot of the actors deserve to be nominated for that, and some of them are. But the movie itself, like I said, or like you said, it didn't really scream Best Picture material.
Was there anything on here that you wanted to point out specifically that you were happy got a nod or were surprised got a nod, things like that?
I think the biggest one is not on the Best Picture list, but for Green Book. I think that Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen should probably have switched places. Like Mahershala Ali should have been Best Actor and Viggo should have been Best Supporting. Now I know it won't be that way just because of the way the movie is made, but I guess what I'm saying is I think the movie should have been made so that it was that way. I mean, I guess we can get into that more when we talk about Green Book, but that was really my biggest thing with the nominations as I see them.
So I just want to point this out to anyone who's like, I want to watch these movies. These movies are really hard to find to watch. Some of them are still in theaters. Some of them aren't. Like Black Panther's on Netflix. Infinity War's on Netflix. Solo, A Star Wars Story's on Netflix. Ready Player One's on HBO. But then almost everything else is like you have a hard time finding. Roma's on Netflix. Incredibles 2 will be on Netflix. Isle of Dogs on HBO. Some of the shorts are online. Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which I actually watched this weekend, on Netflix. First Reforms on Amazon Prime. Minding the Gap, which I don't know if we're ever going to actually talk about on the show or not. It's up for the documentary category. It's really good. I would suggest checking it out if you ever have free time, Christian. It's pretty awesome. And then RBG is also on Hulu. So those are pretty much the main ones that you can find easily right now if you subscribe to any of those services. Otherwise, you're going to have to buy them, pirate them, or go see them in theaters.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case with a lot of these, because especially people come into our theater and ask about these movies, and I this is a good year for my theater getting these Best Picture nominees. Usually the Academy Award-winning movies are more artsy films, and they don't do well in a smaller market. And I think that's going to be the case then that'll plague them with like the streaming services as well. They're not going to want to throw the money at Netflix to license it or at Hulu to license it. So they're just going to be kind of DVD or TV releases. So a lot of them, even ones from past years, I think are going to be hard to get your hands on.
And one other thing I want to point out, because you'd brought it up on our doc here, First Man. Do you know anything about that one?
We had it, yeah. I was surprised it didn't get more nominations. It has 4 here, I think, and they're all pretty technical. It has sound editing, sound mixing, production design, and visual effects. I had seen people talking about Ryan Gosling possibly getting a Best Actor. I'd seen people talking about Claire Foy possibly getting a Best Supporting Actress. It didn't get nominated in any of the big 5 categories.
Potentially another snub.
Possibly. Yeah, like I wanted to see it. It was something that it ran through our cinema so quick that I didn't get a chance to. The only other thing I'll say about it is that we still don't have a host.
Oh, yeah, because Kevin Hart stepped down, didn't he?
Yeah, we're less than a month away and hostless. So I'd seen chatter that they were going to maybe try to get Kevin Hart back. I'd seen somebody say that the Academy was thinking about not having a host at all and just doing presenters. Somebody told me that she had heard a rumor that the cast of the Avengers was going to host together, which I can't imagine. But yeah, as it stands right now, there is no host for the Academy Awards.
I feel like they could do it without a host. Like, the host doesn't really do all that much.
Besides that opening monologue or song that some of them have done in the past, yeah, the host really isn't that integral.
So this week, both Christian and I watched The Green Book. It is a new Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali movie that is also up for Best Picture. It follows the trip of Tony the Lip, who is an Italian from New York who's driving Dr. Shirley, who is a pianist who also happens to be black, around the Deep South as he goes to perform. Did you like this one, Christian?
I did. I liked it more than I thought I was going to.
Same. I had heard a lot of kind of bad-mouthing of this movie before I saw it, but I did end up liking it.
Yeah, it was funnier than I expected it to be.
When I was actually reading the descriptions, they're like, oh, it's a comedy period piece kind of, and I was really surprised because everything you hear about it is about these guys going through Jim Crow South, and you're not thinking a comedy movie at that point.
No, indeed.
One of the big controversies I saw on the internet over this movie was there was criticisms about, they're saying it's a redemption story of a racist who Viggo Mortensen played Tony the Lip. People from Dr. Shirley's family, they didn't appreciate the movie because they weren't approached by it. And then there's also complaints because they didn't show a realistic enough version of the Jim Crow South. So those were the big complaints I saw in the movie. But I gotta say, I still enjoyed it. Maybe that's because I'm coming from a place that's completely different than a lot of people who had to live through this, because I'm white. But I like the movie.
Yeah, I did too. Like I said during our last bit, I think the movie should have been structured a little differently so that it was more focused on Dr. Shirley's story than on Tony's story. I get that it's set up like kind of a, not so much a redemption story for him as like a showcasing how people can grow and change once they're exposed to new things. And that is important. But I think the much more interesting and the much more relevant conflict in the movie wasn't like self-growth. It was this black pianist having to face society, especially a society that thinks that he was less than a person. I think the movie should have been structured so that he was the protagonist instead of Tony.
No, I agree with you. And also, he had this story of him trying to be accepted by white people because he did a lot of white people things, and then also sort of being rejected by black culture by not being black enough. And they sort of dip into that, but they don't really do a deep dive that they could have if he was the main protagonist.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like he has the much more interesting story to be told. So I feel like that was a bit of a misstep. But like you said, on the whole, it was still a good movie. It was enjoyable. It was funnier than I thought it would be. The dip into Italian culture was funny because I'm half Italian, and so my dad knew kind of some of the traditions and things like the Christmas Eve, the whole family around the table eating the fish and the squid and things like that was all a little familiar. And it is just funny kind of seeing that kind of culture. The one guy describes the Sistine Chapel, he calls it the 16 Chapel, which I thought was hysterical.
I didn't pick up on that. This movie kind of reminds me of Remember the Titans a little bit.
Yeah, it does have a similar feel to that.
And I was just like, when I was watching it and hearing the complaints about it, I wonder if people would have liked Remember the Titans as much as, because I remember when it came, people loved that movie. I wonder if it would have been as loved today if it was released in 2019.
Yeah, I don't know. The political climate now is definitely a lot different than it was.
I think Viggo Mortensen was great in this. I love that he was fat and was eating in every scene. Honestly, Viggo Mortensen put on weight for this. I legitimately think do you remember Christian Bale when he was in American Hustle, how he put on all that weight?
Yeah, I mean, he put on a lot of weight for Vice. Viggo
Mortensen did that with this. If I did not know that was him, I would not have recognized him because I haven't seen him in anything since like Hidalgo.
I was just listening to that soundtrack before I came up here. Yeah, we were standing outside the theater a few nights ago, and one of the guys that works here pointed at Marshall Ali and said, "Oh yeah, I know him from something. He was in Hunger Games. He's in the Aelita movie coming out." And he's like, "I have no idea who the white guy is." And we had to stop and be like, "Chris, that's Aragorn. That's Viggo Mortensen." And he was like, "Oh my God."
He bumped up for this one, man. But Mahershala Ali, I think, did a good job, and I think he's a contender for Best Supporting Actor. I mean, I agree with you. I think he probably should have been the star of this one, but he killed this role.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree.
All right, since our last episode, I've actually platinumed a fair number of games, so I'm going to probably be talking about them over the next couple weeks. But I just wanted to do a short one this week since we had so much other content. I played this game called Jack and Jill DX on the Vita. It was an insanely easy platinum. I got to say, it might have been the easiest platinum from like a 2019 game. It took me 20 minutes to do. You basically just need to complete the first world in this game. And so it's very similar to an endless runner where you press a button and then your character goes and you essentially hit the X button to jump. Except you can run into walls and there's levels. So you're going through collecting coins, avoiding enemies, and then you end and there's like, I don't even know how many worlds, but there's like maybe 15, 20 levels per world. So you get the platinum for just finishing that. It really, really just feels like a mobile game that got ported to the PlayStation Network. It was developed by, I think, a single guy, Rohan Narang, and it was published by Ratalaika Games, which I talked a little bit about one of their games before called Devious Dungeon. They're known for doing relatively easy platinums. Overall, it's a pretty simple game. I really dug the art style. It reminded me of the original Kirby and Dreamland, and I liked the music too. It was sort of like that. It was, faux chiptune music. But at the end of the day, I got to say that this is like a D rank game. If you get it on sale or you really want a platinum, it's an A+ because it's so easy. But of game quality itself, once I got the platinum, I had no drive to play the rest. So I can't say it was a very good game. I got it for like $2.50 on sale. It's normally $5. I definitely don't think it's worth $5. And finally, Kingdom Hearts 3 will be released on January 29th. And Christian, you are actually going to be picking that up tonight, aren't
1
you?
hour from my saying this right now, yes.
I'm guessing you're pretty excited if you bought a PlayStation 4 and you're going to a night before release.
I'm very excited. I'm also very, very nervous.
Why are you nervous?
I mean, short of looking at like the leaked footage that isn't supposed to be out there, I've absorbed basically every piece of media on this I could find in the past year and a half. Trailers, gameplay footage, screenshots, the whole deal. And yeah, I'm buzzing with excitement, but I'm also cautiously hopeful. This will never live up to the hype, right? Like, we've been waiting for this game for 13 years. There's no way the reality could live up to that wait. So no matter what, I'm probably going to be at least a little bit let down. I'm hopeful that this is going to be the last game. I'm not expecting it to be. I would like them to just kind of wrap the story and be done. It's been long enough. This is like the 11th game in this franchise now. I would like them to just know when to quit. but I feel like this game's going to make an obscene amount of money, and they're going to be like, well, we can make more. I would hate to see them beat this into the ground.
My problem right now is I'm playing some other games, so my New Year's resolution was to not buy more games till I finish my current ones. So I'm probably not going to pick this up for a couple months. And also, I haven't played any game in the series since 2. And I kind of want to get the story so far and play through. I kind of want to replay through 2 again as well, but I just know that's unlikely. And I just want to play through Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance. I don't care about 365 over 2 or whatever the title on that one is, 352 over 2. Just because I have no real context for this story, so I don't know if I'm going to end up playing those first or I'm just going to watch a video to try and get caught up eventually.
Yeah, I know there used to be like a 1-hour video on YouTube that was essentially like the timeline of Kingdom Hearts that would probably be helpful. Birth by Sleep so far is my favorite in the franchise. I love the gameplay. I think the story is the best. It's much darker than some of the other ones. Whereas Dream Drop Distance is probably the worst in the franchise. It was not a great game. They introduced time travel, and anytime you introduce time travel into a story, it gets needlessly convoluted and not great. So we'll see. We'll see how they handle it in 3. I'm not a big Toy Story fan in general, and so I was disappointed that that's going to be included in this game. I've hated the and they shoehorn it into every single game. I don't know why. I think Square just hates their fans. I am excited for Frozen and Tangled and Big Hero 6 and the Olympus Coliseum. So I'm hopeful. I guess I'll find out in a few hours.
I mean, I actually like the 100 Acre Woods in the first game because it was like a hidden level that if you found all the books, it was actually a pretty big surprise. But then you're right, I think it got shoehorned into 2, and it sounds like in the other ones as well. My biggest problem with the last game I really played was 2 was they just revisited the same world. So I'm happy that they're expanding on that and going into their Pixar category at least. So you're not going to be going to Halloween Town for like the 3rd or 4th time.
Yeah, the other thing with the worlds is that there's not many. I think there's 7 worlds total in this game, but they're all supposed to be enormous.
Hopefully they're filled with things to do.
Yeah. The other thing that's making me uneasy is that it looks like the summons in this game are going to be like Disney World rides. I saw you can summon like the big swinging ship, and you can summon Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which is a roller coaster. So there's going to have to be some outstanding in-game explanations for that. Otherwise, I'm going to be real weirded out. There's like outside looking in, there seems to be no earthly reason why you should be able to summon a roller coaster to help you fight Rock Titan. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me on its face, but we'll see. Maybe they'll have some like incredible story reason why they're theme park rides all of a sudden.
Have you watched any reviews on this?
Not many, no. Yeah, like I said, I've watched all of the stuff that's been put out on purpose, but I'm avoiding anything that's like from people who have played through it already. I'm trying to go into it mostly clean of stuff like that.
So I'm not going to go into the specifics of the reviews, but in general, it seems like it's been positive reviews on it. The original Kingdom Hearts 2, which I think we both are pretty big fans of, if I remember right, like IGN gave it a 7.6 or something. So I feel like Kingdom Hearts have their own fan community like us who like the games, even if in general, I don't think they score as high as they should. But generally, I feel like this one's been between like 8 and 9s, except for the only one I've seen that was kind of critical was Polygon's review. They did not seem to like the game too much, but everyone else seems to be pretty high on it.
Oh, good. Yeah, cautiously optimistic, I guess, is where I would put myself.
Like Square Enix will put out at the very least, a competent game. Technically, the game's going to be a game. It's going to work. I'm curious how the story goes.
Yeah, I've been carving a bloody path through Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, I love that game. My biggest problem is you can't skip some cutscenes.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, that's something I'm struggling with right now. I don't save games is one of my problems as a person. I will just pause it and turn my TV off. I got to the Calmlands today, and I got pretty bad by one of those giant vines with teeth.
Oh, Marlboro.
Yeah, so I got a game over, and I was like, oh, when's the last time I saved this, I wonder? And I was like, oh my god, it was like 2 boss fights ago.
Oh, were you still in Bevelle or whatever?
So I'm right before the second Seymour battle.
Yeah, dude, that's rough. That's my big problem. Oh.
Yeah, because I'm also used to Kingdom Hearts style, where if you lose, there's just a continue button. But Final Fantasy
Yeah.
X takes you back to your last save point. So yeah, I booted it back up and I saw where it loaded me and I was like, nope, I'm done for today. I turned it right back off again. Like I can't fight Seymour again today and go through it. Because it was then you have to go through the underwater date scene again, which is objectively a good scene, but I don't want to watch it again immediately.
Yeah, dude, that's my biggest complaint with Final Fantasy X Remaster was like I bought it for the PS3, I bought it for the PS4, I have it for Vita. Like I love the game. I have beaten that game so many times, like especially on PlayStation 2. Like I don't want to watch the story anymore. I don't want to sit through this. I just want to get going because I like the battle system and stuff. They don't have the autosave, which I'm actually playing Final Fantasy 12 Remaster right now. They implemented an autosave, and it is a godsend because they autosave every time you go into a new map, and it's awesome.
Nice, yeah. I would have enjoyed that today. But yeah, I got to the Calmland, so I was like, I've only got like Gagazet and Xanarkand left, and then I'm done with the story. Now I'm gonna try and platinum it, but there's trophies for like 100%ing the sphere grid with every character, which is gonna be rough.
I want to platinum that game. It's one of those games where I'm like, I don't know if I have the drive to. Like, you not only do you have to complete the sphere grid, you have to actually fill each node in too. It's a huge grind.
Just said once you get to a certain point, like it's not actually that bad to fill out the sphere grid because like the monsters will just drop spheres like crazy. But it's going to be getting to that point. And the HD is based on the international, so there's a bunch of bosses in here that like I've never fought before.
Yeah, the dark aeons are rough.
Yeah, so we'll see. I was gonna try to finish the story by the Kingdom Hearts release, but getting that setback today and finding out that I had 3 less hours than I expected to before Kingdom Hearts came out, I was like, well, it's not gonna happen. But we'll see how quick I can breeze through KH3 and get back to it because I want to try and play 10-2 as well. I never beat 10-2 the first time I played it.
Oh, see, I never even played it, and I still haven't. I haven't. I was like, I'll check it out once I beat 10, and then like I just got sucked into trying to platinum it.
It's much worse than 10. It's not a bad game, but it's not super good. The characters each have these like crazy forms that are like all powerful. And I found the first time I played it, I found Pain's like super dress sphere probably like 20 minutes into the game. And then I relied on it so heavily throughout the game that my other characters didn't level up at all. And so I made it to like the end of the game with 1 like super beefed up character and 2 garbage ones, and I was never able to beat the final boss.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that sucks, but that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, so even in Final Fantasy X of this playthrough, I've made a much more conscious effort to try and like keep my characters rounded out. Like, because the first time I got to Kamari's like solo fight at my Gagazet the first time, it took me like a week because I had never played with him. So I had to go back and just grind with Kamari to get him to a point where he could fight by himself.
It's one of the most annoying things about, I think, Final Fantasies is that in the more recent ones, your characters just don't level, so you're constantly having to bring them in. But 10 does a really good job of letting you switch them in and out of each battle with the L1. So it's less painful, I think, if you're doing it while you're playing through the game. Whereas some other games, like you're like, okay, I have 2 parties, and every 2 levels I got to switch, and my tactics are different.
Yeah, I love 10's battle system. I'm a big fan of like really everything about 10. People ask me what my favorite game is, and I say as a franchise, probably Kingdom Hearts. But if I had to pick an individual game, it would probably be Final Fantasy X.
For turn-based games, I really like 10s because it'll show you what's going to happen if you do whatever, and like the turn order on the right and stuff. Like I really like being able to plan that.
Yeah, 10's been fun because I mean it's been probably like 8 years maybe since I've played this, like really played it. And so there's a lot of like little story things that I've forgotten, like I didn't remember when certain people learned things about each other, like oh, this was a secret for a while. I forgot that nobody knew this about this. So that was fun for me.
Yeah, that's cool. You get to replay it from like 8th grade until maybe my junior year in college. I would play through Final Fantasy X on the PlayStation 2 like every spring break. That was my tradition. All right, now we're going to do our Amazon review game. Just a quick refresher, Christian is going to be reading me a 5-star review from Amazon of a movie. I will get 2 yes or no questions to help me guess it. I can then request another review. I will get 2 more yes or no questions, and then I can request a final review before I have to guess.
All right. So our first review is from Terry Oliver. It's called Prepare to Laugh. I thought this was going to be a stupid movie. Wrong. The cast was perfect. The jokes were hysterical. The premise of 1986 was spot on. The people griping about how childish this movie was, lighten up. It was silly and fun. I could watch it again and again and again.
Whew, you're giving me a big one with the premise of 1986. Is this a superhero movie?
It is not.
Is this a Will Ferrell movie?
No.
Okay, I'm going to need another review then.
All right. This one comes from SB. Excellent if you're a Gen Xer or have a laid-back sense of humor. This is a quality parody and homage to the 80s and cheesy 80 movies. I've seen it 3 times now. Once when it ran in theaters, once for a friend's bachelor party, once here on Amazon Prime, and it still holds up. If you grew up in the 80s and have a laid-back sense of humor, you'll probably enjoy it. It borrows a little from many different iconic 80s movies, from Terminator to Karate Kid to Red Dawn to the Back to the Future and more. It has many iconic actors from that decade, including Crispin Glover, Chevy Chase, and of course, John Cusack. Overall, I thought it was well done, funny, entertaining, and nostalgic.
Oh my gosh, Christian, you're giving me so much here. Nothing is coming to mind. Man, Chevy Chase and John Cusack were in the same movie. Is this like a I don't know, is spoof the right word? Like a parody movie?
Kind of.
Was this released in the 2000s?
Yes.
I'm going to need a third clue here.
All right, our last review is from Amy Abbott's. It's called That Darn Squirrel. In this movie, you've got so many great actors coming together to make a really hilarious film. I've seen this movie so many times, and I can quote most of it. Would watch 1,000 times again because it's just that funny. Dirty, yes, and I wouldn't recommend it for anyone under 13. I love the idea they went with here that absolutely anything could be a time machine. It was a great idea for a movie and a star-studded crew that makes up for a great laugh out loud experience.
Does this involve a hot tub?
It does.
Is it Hot Tub Time Machine?
It is. I would definitely recommend Hot Tub Time Machine. I was a fan of it back when it first came out.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. Before we go, Christian, what will you be checking out this week?
We've got a few movies out now that I want to see. Since I was gone for 2 weeks, I got all backed up. The Upside came out. We got a movie called Serenity with Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey that I've heard is kind of a mess, but we'll see. I mean, Kingdom Hearts comes out in half an hour for me, so I'm probably going to be all consumed with that, but I've also got a fairly large backlog of things we can be talking about too.
This week, I'm going to be trying to watch more Oscar nominations. I really want to see Glass, so I want to hopefully get to the movies to see that. I still have a redemption ticket. I'm playing Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age HD remaster. I'm really hoping to have that platinum by the end of the weekend. It's kind of a long game. So I'm pretty close, though, I think. I only have a couple more hunts left, a couple magics to find, and then do the trial mode. So that's my goal. All right, guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you have any suggestions for the Amazon review game or want to contact us in any way, you can reach us through email at gambots.blog@gmail.com or on Twitter. We are at Gambots Network. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.